The Young Turks recently posted a video where they discussed the ongoing case of Gonzalez versus Wells Fargo Bank following the death of Gonzalez's daughter Mackenzie in 2011 from cancer. The suit alleges that Gonzalez, who was employed by Wells Fargo selling securities, was fired from his position because his daughter's medical costs would have been too expensive. Consequently, not only did he lose his job, he lost his medical coverage. The hospital where his daughter was due to have treatment she was scheduled to receive decided to cancel her procedure, and she subsequently died from her condition. He was allegedly fired shortly after his wife had been questioned about their daughter's medical treatment by a representative of Wells Fargo, and the questions repeatedly turned back to the issue of how expensive the treatment was going to be. Wells Fargo alleged that Mr. Gonzalez falsified time cards, despite the claim by Mr. Gonzalez that his supervisor filed those time cards himself and told Mr. Gonzalez that it was okay if he did not exactly remember the hours that he had completed. So the facts of this lawsuit so far are that Mr. Gonzalez alleges that he was fired in order that Wells Fargo did not have to cover the medical costs of the cancer treatment of his child. Wells Fargo, on the other hand, say that he was fired simply because his time cards were incorrect. This case is ongoing, and it's going to take some time to sort it all out. If this one case has garnered notoriety in the press, then imagine the possibility that something similar may be happening with people all across the United States. People in fear of losing their jobs if they get critically sick, because their employers might not want to pay the expensive medical costs that could result. And while the argument continues to rage about which side is right in all of this, I want to point out the simple fact that must be brought to everyone's attention above all else. Someone has died from a form of cancer that could have been prevented through potentially life-saving medical treatment on the basis that someone else didn't want to pay for it. Allow me to rephrase. Someone has died when they probably didn't need to. This is one of the most critical problems with the current state of health coverage in the United States today. The much maligned and controversial Obama administration's healthcare reform simply does not go far enough to address this problem. And there are people out there who think that this will all go away through the implementation of completely unregulated, completely free-for-all capitalistic free market healthcare. If anything, problems like this will only get worse as companies try to find reasons not to pay for people's medical costs if they can find the tiniest little reason or justification to fire an employee so that they can avoid the healthcare bill. After all, if private businesses are trying to cut corners with regulations in place, what makes you think they won't try to cut corners without those regulations? This is not an issue where I live. In fact, this is not an issue in any other industrialized country on this planet. Only in America, of all the first world countries on the planet, is this even an issue to begin with. And is this an isolated incident? Not likely. There have been cases where United Healthcare have refused to pay out their insurance policies by declaring certain conditions as non-essential, despite the policyholders being told by their doctors that they need the treatment in order to allow them to become active and productive members of society again, or in some cases even to save their lives. Free market healthcare will not make this problem go away. To date, no free-for-all hyper-capitalists have told us the exact mechanism that makes it impossible for this sort of conduct to go on. If countries like Canada, the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Japan, Sweden, or any other first world country on this planet can have a healthcare system that covers everyone, then why the hell do people in America cry foul when their administration tries to catch up to the rest of the Western world in such a respect? It's simple. The American people have been convinced that somehow such a system will bring about communism. I've seen some utterly ridiculous arguments along the lines of, well, if we start bringing in a universal healthcare system, the next thing you know, people will be being told what they can and can't eat. After that, people will suddenly find themselves being told that if they eat unhealthily, they're going to have committed a criminal offence. It's like the argument made by people in 1999 that you'll wake up on the 1st of January 2000, your alarm clock won't work, your electricity has been lost due to that Y2K bug, and none of your electrical appliances will function. Your telephone service has stopped, and you'll find that as soon as you get into your computer-controlled car, it won't start. In both cases, they are utterly mindless and nonsensical. I live in the UK, and we have had universal healthcare since the 1940s. Nobody is told that if they eat fast food they will be arrested for criminal offences, and it is the case in the UK that fast food, like in the US, is still far cheaper than the healthy alternative. There goes the argument that bringing in universal healthcare will bring about communist-level food control. Arguments against universal healthcare include waiting list nonsense, like Mr. Killian's video about how there's an unbelievable 18-week waiting list, when in fact the actual statistical information and my own personal experience shows that this is rarely the case. Not to mention the fact that in the USA, there are also waiting lists in spite of the fact that they have a privatized medical system over there. So yes, when I see people advocate for free-for-all capitalism when it comes to healthcare, it upsets me, because that's the sort of thing that allows for unfortunate and tragic loss of life such as this to go on, or even get worse, when it simply doesn't need to. And when people cite the Daily Fail as a source of why it is the case that the NHS is a broken system because of some incident here or there whereby someone ended up giving birth to a child on a pavement because of an error that was made about the urgency of her labour, or when someone just plain makes up stories about how old people are allegedly left to die without food and water, they are despicable fuckers who I have no time for, because all of this is a flat-out lie. The United States is the only first world country without universal healthcare. Far from leading the way in this respect, they are lagging behind everyone else. This is also true of their education system, especially if it produces more people who believe in biblical creationism, bar Turkey, than any other first world country on the face of the planet. People need to take a good, hard, long look at why they think universal healthcare will lead to communism, and then wake up. It's bollocks, and it's time for the fear to go, and for the facts to come into the arguments. Everyone has a right to a decent standard of life, because survival is not living, and preventable deaths need to stop. Thank you.